Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this month's Digging In with TPS Southern Region at MTSU. Getting my intro slides pulled up here. Sorry for not having that done early. So thank you so much for joining us for our final webinar for 2025. We are really excited about today's session. We got a special guest presenter with us today. So a couple of things as we get started. For those of you who are joining us live, please be sure to keep your mics muted. And as always, we do like for sessions to be interactive for those who are with us live. So feel free to use the chat box, reactions. I don't think we're doing polling today, but again, we do like for our sessions to be interactive. So again, that's another great reason to try to join us when you can for live recordings. We will be sharing information and resources from today's session via the album that we have created on the TPS Teachers Network in the newsletter Ending In album. So be sure to check that for where to find resources, slides, all of that fun stuff from today's session. So with that said, I'm going to turn things over to Stacy to get us started for this month.
Thanks, Kira. I am going to go ahead and share the newsletter. And as always, you can find it if you just click on newsletter on our website. And so here we're going to close up the 2025 tab. This is over 200 issues now. And I'm going to open that up. And as your holiday gift, we have made it 4 pages again after having been only 3 pages for the rest of the issues this year. But before, we always had a 4 page format. And the reason is just because we now have so many projects that we want to share that we wanted to give space to talk about each of these. And so look forward to that in upcoming issues. Just a quick glance through. You'll see 3 different things that we're going to talk about in today's issue. The one of which our guest speaker today, Dr. Angie Su from Nova Southeastern University in Florida, who's joining us from California, and she's going to talk about making numbers tell a story, quantitative reasoning with TPS primary sources, and that will be coming up really soon. She's got a great article here with lots of great ideas. And then after that, our graduate student, Ashli Townsend, will be going through her lesson idea on ciphers, spies, ciphers, and secret messages, which is also kind of looking at a primary source that has a connection to math and quantitative reasoning. And then this featured project article here is an interview that our own Dr. Smallwood conducted with one of our civil awardees from Knox County Schools. So I guess I'll leave it on this page. Layla, would you like to talk about this one a little bit with us? And if you want to share your page, go ahead and let me know. If not, I will leave it up on this.
No, it's fine. We can leave it up on yours right here. So hi everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is we have featured partners, featured projects, featured mini grant recipients, all throughout our newsletter and in our webinars. This is something that we are trying to push forward. We have the featured project here, but I'm hoping to start Meet the Sub-Awardees kind of YouTube section on our page or playlist so we can have some time to chat with our sub-awardees and how and talk about how they're implementing their grants without doing it within the webinar if the time constraints don't work for them. So this quick little write-up was done over the phone, and then I have an interview with Catherine, who, yes, more videos, more playlists. I have an interview with Catherine, who is the lead on this project, next week that we'll be posting to YouTube. So this is just an overview of their project, and so now we are teaching with primary sources Southern Region, but for so many years before, we were teaching with primary sources at MTSU. We served MTSU teachers. We did MTSU PD. We worked, or not MTSU teachers, sorry. We worked with Tennessee teachers. We did Tennessee PD, everything like that. So we had a lot of partners and partnerships established in Tennessee statewide. So when I talked with Catherine Schultz on this, she is the K-12 social studies supervisor for Knox County Schools in Knoxville, Tennessee. We already had a relationship established. We had worked with Knox County Schools through other different regional grants or grant programs. So it was a really interesting process for both of us, I guess all of us on the team, to go from doing um, these grants together to being MTSU or the TPS Southern Region, right? So it was a little bit different. So this project specifically, Catherine and Knox County Schools and her social studies leads and teachers that are involved, her curriculum specialists, they were all aware of this happening because we talked with them, right? And we have state standards in Tennessee changing for the rollout for fourth, fifth, and sixth. They're going to be, I mean, third, fourth, and fifth, excuse me. There are going to be a lot of standard changes happening for next school year, the 26-27 school year. So this project is working with third, fourth, and fifth grade teachers, as well as curriculum leads within Catherine's social studies department for Knox County Schools to create lessons that will help teachers kind of transition into these new standards, this new shift. So they're working to train a cohort of Knox County school teachers as they prepare for this new state standard rollout. And they're really looking at creating new material for this, so new lesson plans, working through a cohort and troubleshooting. They're doing a lot of individual, I guess not individual, but like little meetings within the social studies cohort and group to get feedback, edit, work with them again all throughout the school year. And those lessons, again, should be rolled out and presented at their PDs for 26-27 and for teachers to use in 2026-27 in the school year, during the school year. So one big thing that I wanted to focus on with this is asking them what they've learned, right? Because they're someone who's worked on multiple projects. So they really focused with this grant specifically, this award on simplifying. So they wanted to focus on the gaps that teachers are saying that they have in this curriculum that's going to roll out next year. And they really wanted to simplify what they were offering teachers. So it's less heavy lifting for the teachers on the front end when they get these lesson plans and activities. They're very direct, they're very focused. The standard is very high, and they're also very clear on their expectations throughout this. So hopefully at the end of this, we will have from Knox County Schools and Knox County School educators and the Social Studies Department a full sets of revised and completed standard aligned lessons for third, fourth, and fifth grade that really hit on those things that are new or maybe need a little more in-depth explanation, things like that for the changes that we're going to see in these new standards in the 26-27 school year. And everything will be available for future district level training and for standards implementation, hoping to build on it for future changes as well. So keep checking back in because we will have more highlights, more partners, and then we'll have an interview with Catherine on YouTube, hopefully by the end of next week.
Thank you so much. I kind of put Layla on the spot there for a second, and so thanks for that report about this not just this project that's going on, but also the fact that we're gonna have more kind of short videos of Q&As with ongoing funded projects that we're going to post our videos on the new YouTube playlist. Let's see how many of those we can create. So now what I would like to do is introduce Dr. Angie Sue, who again so graciously agreed to write us this guest article about her work. And it's so enthusiastic. I love it. It made me think in a lot of new ways, even using sources that I've used millions of times before, just kind of thinking about really great connections and just, the love of learning, but how you can really kind of make it interdisciplinary almost without even realizing it. So I'm going to stop sharing so that Dr. Sue, if you wanted to share your screen, you may do so. But I'm going to turn the floor over to you. But I'm going to start off by asking a question. And that is, since we usually do work with teachers who teach social studies or history, what can math concepts do to help social studies teachers?
All right, that's a really great question. But let me first thank you, Stacy. It was really truly a pleasure meeting you and Kira at the Library of Congress. I was expecting meeting somebody who's very old. And then when Stacy came up to me, I said, "No, you're not Stacy."
Come
She
back in
she
30 years.
So I've spent many years helping teachers see mathematics as more than numbers on a page. I always try to find innovative ways. And primary sources from the Library of Congress have become one of my favorite ways to make math meaningful and connected to students, and especially connected to their lives. So I am delighted to share ideas that bridge mathematics with social studies, inquiries, and storytelling. It's kind of a very natural connection here. So question number one that I was working on, thinking that you might be interested, um, piggybacking on Stacy's question, would be me asking a teacher, what are your favorite type of primary source to use when teaching math concepts? And thinking that when I post that question to students, I can then reflect upon myself, right? So looking at the article that I contributed, I say to myself, then using the primary source. I love using primary sources that naturally embed numbers um, inside real historical context. So sources that require students to think like mathematicians and historians at the same time is really a natural marriage to me, right? So it's so well easy connected. So a few examples I return to again and again includes using the U.S. Census table. When I look at that, census data is a gold mine, right? Students can calculate percent change, compare populations across decades, or examine demographic patterns, but the real value is interpretive. So for example, what does this growth tell us about migration, industrialization, or social change? So the numbers can serve as evidence, not just answers here, right? And then, of course, showing them posters in the classroom lead to these natural connection. So at the WPA literacy posters, public health advertisements, rationing notices, and wall-bound flyers all contain ratios. Anything that you pull from the Library of Congress actually that has these posters and public campaign materials contain these natural things, right? So my question to my students has always been, what mathematical message? I'll show them a poster and I would say, what mathematical message is the poster sending? How do numbers persuade or motivate citizens? So that got them really thinking. So let's look at this poster here. What math message is this poster sending? I know it appears to be nothing, but there's a lot. Are there any math teachers here?
I think you
Anything?
have all history people today.
I,
I'm gonna take a guess. Could you be something about you think about numbers as far as like how many months are in a year since we do mention October or even hours in a day? Because I mean, time, referencing time.
That's perfect, Kara. So we're not going to tell the students that no, they're wrong. So we piggyback on their answers. So that's is exactly right, right, Kara? So she's referring to the month, right? So there are 12 months in the year, and you can put in emphasis on using this to teach calendars for younger children or more advanced, uh, the data, dissecting different data throughout different years in the month of October. What has happened? How many times does October 31st fall on the same day of the week throughout all these years? You can actually then plot this on a graph for the more advanced math students, and you do a comparison that way. For the easy younger children, you can have them just calculate it out. Why do we see different days, um, even though it's the same month throughout the years? Why do the day change? For example, October 30th. How come it falls on a different day? Why does it change? They can actually do some research on their own as well, right? So that's one thing that Akira connected. Anything else that you see?
well, we did have a comment from, I believe, an ELA English teacher
Mhm.
about how this connects October with this genre of horror or kind of the macabre in terms of what they are reading. So, in a way, it's like ascribing certain characteristics to something that should just be objective, a calendar month of the year. But then we have all these associations with it, which are depicted in this poster.
All right.
Yeah, so,
So
but
in terms of mathematics, how can we let's say pretend all of you are math teachers. How can
I
you then? Yes, go ahead.
Well, I think there are a lot of different things that you can do graphically, that you can make graphic or observations. And one of the ones that I notice, because this is something I'm interested in, is that let's see, there's black, there's white, there's orange, and blue. So there's only four color tones, whereas we're used to a lot more colors on more modern posters. And so I would wonder kind of like why only four colors are how many colors are used on other posters from this time period because it'll have to do with quality of ink and how much money it costs to print and that kind of gets into economics and stuff like that. But
Wow, Stacy, that's a different view than any of my students contributed to this poster. But piggyback on your suggestion, using the four different colors over time, throughout these time period, are there any changes in using colors in the media, so on, and why did it change? Um, what made it change? Through what is the time period? How long did it take for the change to occur? And things like that. They can actually also create graph and statistical data to go with and so on. And so how do these numbers persuade or motivate citizens? Then it got me really curious to find out 100 years ago, how do they want to share information through posters? Do they even have that? And then I have students looking into that. They search the Library of Congress platform to try to see if they can find similar posters to describe what we're trying to find and so on. So, in other words, I give them a task that they may not use words or numbers, but they must reply using another poster. So they went and they fetched another poster. And then when they got all their posters together, then they began to discuss what's on the poster and what mathematical concepts can they develop and so on. And well, so I'd help them see things. I try to lead them to see things that they otherwise won't see, making connections to numbers using everyday things that they can find and from long time ago and through the changes of history, what occurred, what helped make the changes and so on. So it's the same with maps, especially the Sanborn fire insurance map. Why is that important? They are wonderful for geometry actually and measurement. So the scale drawings actually help the students to estimate distance, areas and building size or neighborhood layouts. Then they get to reflect what the insurers need such precision. Why? Why did they need such precision? What do these maps reveal about community life, risk, industry, or segregation, and so on? So we can take an hour to go through this or a whole month going through different sections of the topic that you want to cover, depending on what level your student is at. You can focus in on one math concept or many that is tied together. So I know that we are limited in time, so I am going to move forward. The ledgers and list and everyday records that I mentioned in my writing here, immigration tables, especially nowadays, this is a very sensitive issue, right? So you go back to the immigration tables, such as the 1903 immigration figure set, um, the store account books or the school attendance logs, invite data, visualization. There's bar graph, circle graphs, frequency tables, and proportional comparisons that you could really dive deep into just using the numbers that you see from this page. It seems pretty complicated. The students look at these numbers, oh my gosh, this is just a bunch of jumbled up numbers. What do I do with it? And then you coax them into looking into deeply and see and then make comparisons to then and now and what they can do. So the common thread would be you ask them a question, you do the math, and then they interpret the source, and then you tell the story. Kind of something like that, the four-step process, right? You ask them a question, what do you see on this page? And then you help them do the math, right? How do you do the math? And then you interpret um, what the source means and so on. And then you started to tell the story, what happens then and what happened now. So on this map here that in front of me looks very tiny. So it's in the 1800s all the way to the 1900s.
I'm sorry,
Um,
which map?
the one that you're showing right now.
Oh, okay, good. Just make sure.
Yeah, so it's from the 18, I can see
Oh,
the
this
the
is
year,
the
1800.
1903. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So even within that century that you can see the different numbers come into play. So all these numbers actually can help you carry a really good math lesson, one single math lesson or multi math lessons here. Can you think of a way to use these numbers? Anybody? So the four cycles that I was referring to, you ask them a question and they do the math, interpret the source, and tell the story. This cycle actually helps students see math as evidence for understanding people and places.
Mhm.
So,
Well, you could look at the changes in the literacy rates and try to figure out how many people that stands for and maybe how it compares to the rest of the population, because this is obviously trying to make a statement about where the illiterate people are coming from. And but doing it through numbers kind of makes it seem objective, even though it's, you know.
correct. You can just, that's another reason why I go into math because you really can't make up stories.
Yeah.
The numbers are there to prove, is the fact. And so you can't really change anything, right? So let me ask a question. What can math concepts do to help social studies teachers? Which is kind of Stacy's question, right? So to me, math strengthens social studies instruction by giving students tools to analyze patterns, ask better questions, and support claims with evidence. Like back to what I was saying, that's why I love math, right? You can actually use numbers to support claims with evidence, true evidence. So you can't just make up things, right? So a few ways math enhanced social studies includes making historical trends visible. So for examples, the percentage change ratio and rates help students interpret population shifts, economic development, transportation growth, and voting pattern. Each one of those topic areas that I just mentioned can take you into a whole math lesson, dive into deeply, or you can stretch it into a week-long lesson, or you could make connections to each one of those topic areas, right? Population shift, how is that connected to economic development? I mean, so students can do research on their own, or you could guide them through it. And then how does the transportation growth and voting patterns change at the same time or being affected by these trends, right? Um, so using this resources that I was referring to, the quantitative reasoning helps students learn to justify claims with data. So they can just say, I believe that 100 years ago, more people sailed to USA because they're looking for better lives. Um, but here now they have real data to show how many actually immigrated, you know, to the USA, let's say in the 1900s versus in the 1800s and so on, right? So you could also reveal the inequality and access in your math classroom using these information that you gather. So data on housing, the income, everything is just all naturally fall together. Um, why is data on housing important? Well, so today actually I read Elon Musk actually came out with a housing proposal giving selling his creation of this new house for $10,000 and he's giving away free land to go with it. And so with this kind of a generous gesture, a lot of takers, of course, will flood to it. But I don't know whether or not this information is true. So I need to dive deeper into the research to see whether or not this information is truthful, because you're talking about providing housing cheaper than um, buying a car and then getting that. So all these uncertainties is up to your students to go in, do deeper research into it, and then we can compare housing 20 years ago and housing 10 years ago and housing current housing situation. And also depending on where you live geographically, right, in the USA, um, how these property or housing change your living or lifestyle and so on, right? Right. So interpreting math in everything you see actually encourage students to write historical or civic narratives grounded in real evidence. Um, Numbers cease to be abstract and instead become a language for understanding people, places, and choices. So the fact that you are using something that is tangible, like a map, a list, a even a page of document or poster in our cases here, right? Is actually something that your students can connect to and make sense out of it using these information and details. Um, so, so far, that's what I have to share. I have time to share. I know that there are two more people after me. Are there any questions?
I have a question. So
Go ahead.
when you talk about your students, um, like, are your students like pre-service teachers, in-service teachers, or college students? And then what grade levels are they going to teach? I know that you kind of differentiated it in terms of different kinds of
Yes,
questions you can ask for different grade levels. So
right.
every grade level there is can benefit from this approach, right?
Correct. So, Stacy, thank you for asking that question. The student body that I worked with so far with the primary sources across the board, mainly are graduate students. They're currently teaching mathematics in the classroom. So they are kindergarten through fifth grade teachers,
Oh,
middle school
wow.
math teachers, high school math teachers. Imagine having those different grade levels in your classroom in one setting. It is very difficult for an instructor, right? So you have to really find a very creative way to teach so that the lesson plan can stretch over K-12. And so far, no questions, no problems. These teachers collaborate so well. They work together. They know that in the classroom there are kindergarten teachers, and then there are advanced placement statistics teachers sitting in my classroom. And so they help each other actually.
Oh,
Um,
neat.
I know, isn't that something? And then I have PhD research classes, which I am also introducing the primary source to them because they are digging everywhere for information which they couldn't find. So I show them the Library of Congress, the primary source. They were, wow, and this is free. I say, yes, all of these are free. You could use this whenever you need to. I also showed them how to get a library car.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so that was good. So I'm really grateful for the TPS community.
Yeah.
for allowing me to actually take some of the resources and share in my classroom. I'm really excited about this, and I look forward to continue the collaboration between all of us. In the short time, I got hooked up with the Southeastern region, and I got hooked up to the South region, the West region.
Yeah.
I love it. I just
Yeah,
love
you
all the
met everybody at the
possibilities.
meeting.
Yeah, everybody's so wonderful. So I'm always happy to share lesson examples. I'm just, the brief time that we have is very difficult for me to share everything
Of
as much
course.
as I needed to. So feel free to reach out to me. I'm always happy to share any lesson ideas and examples. I don't know if I was with Anne's group on Tuesday. Anne, are you still here?
Anne had to leave already, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah, she was talking about the metacognition, way of teaching. So I said, hey, I have a article that published.
Yeah.
So that's why I shared that article. But feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or need further lesson ideas and so on, how I do it within my classroom, sharing with kindergarten all the way through high school teachers, and also community college faculties as well.
Right. Yes, let's
Yeah.
not forget our colleagues in the community colleges. They need resources too. This is wonderful for so many reasons. It can you can really work with any teacher in any grade level. And what I love
Correct.
about the primary sources is that they really kind of connect to students' own experiences. They can look up their hometowns and then see how big the buildings were, or if they're the same nowadays, maybe go do some, measurements and see if they've changed. When we were looking at the immigration statistics, I was thinking already about my ancestors and which column they fit into. So I think that it's just there's so much really great overlap with so many other subjects here. So everybody really appreciates the way these math concepts are embedded. And, historians, I think, are really I hear a lot of people be dismissive about math. Oh, I can't do that or that kind of thing. But in a way, they're already so close to it that these kind of partnerships where you're just asking, really good kind of inquiry-based questions, but from your perspective, I think you can really change a lot of people's minds about
Right. So the primary
math.
sources invite students, in my mind, I feel they invite students to make sense of people's lives through numbers,
Yeah,
actually, right? All the
yeah,
way
yeah.
from old time to now. So they understand not just what happened, but why it matters, isn't
Mm,
it? Right?
yeah.
Through numbers and so on. So it's very interesting as I dive deeper into it. I find it very interesting and I just keep running with it because I myself find it very interesting. So when you're excited, actually, when you're excited as a teacher in the classroom, your students get excited too.
Well, I like to think that, and I'm sure they do. So, and
Yeah.
it's certainly more likely to make them excited than the opposite. I'm excited now. This has been very, very interesting and hopefully inspiring. And I thank you again for being here with us. And hopefully you'll be able to stick around and listen to some of our lesson idea that I'm going to turn this over to Ashley shortly. But this is on the last page of our newsletter. I tasked her with the job of creating a lesson idea that had something to do with math, and she was very brave and creative and found this really wonderful thing about these ciphers and how that connects to a lot of our early American history. And I think we might even have the possibility of creating our own later on. So I am actually going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to you, Ashley.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. Let me just get my screen shared. That's not the beginning. Let me get back to the beginning. Okay. So I chose ciphers because anytime I get to talk or learn about spies, I get excited. And when I found out that spies and ciphers did in fact connect some to math, I was like, yes, this is what I'm gonna write about. So, also, this lesson idea connects to early American history and it also connects to frequency and probabilities with math. And I will now continue. Okay, so um the what we've been talking about, math and history may seem like an uncommon duo, but they fit really well together. And I think Dr. Sue shared that beautifully with us. And it's also a way for teachers to engage their class in different ways and incorporate those practical math skills into these big picture concepts that we see in history. So many ciphers, this can also apply to coding as well, but I didn't really put that into the presentation. Many ciphers actually rely on algorithms, um, and that also is math-based. And the cipher that I have, I won't be incorporating into the lesson, but it's cool. It's written to General George Washington, and as you can see, it uses a corresponding letter number cipher. So each number stands for a letter in the alphabet. And it's really cool too, coming across some that have been decoded because they have the letters on top of them. Um, anyway, so context. Historically, ciphers have been used to send and crack coded messages. They've also been used to tell military time and government secrets, and they can emphasize the value of math-based problem solving. So for America, um, ciphers started more or less with the Culper spy ring and delivering coded messages to General George Washington during the Revolutionary War. And then their code names were kind of like this still with the where's my mouse? There we go. I can't point to it physically, which was what I was trying to do. So, we're a lot like this. They had corresponding letter numbers for code names. Um, so part of the lesson idea. Um, so frequency, many ciphers use frequency to solve the cipher. So frequency is um, tells us how many times a value or an event occurs. It's a way to describe how common something is within a group or data set. So basically, you have a cipher that looks like just a bunch of scrambled letters, but each one of there's always a letter that's more common than the other one. So, um, if frequency is how often a letter is used, what do you guys think the most commonly used letter in our alphabet is?
A.
E. A-E?
IOU.
Yeah, it's a vowel.
Yeah, that.
No, Layla, you can't buy a vowel.
When me
Or
and
S. S has been set forth.
when Layla and I were talking earlier, she brought up how this was kind of like Wheel of Fortune or Hangman, and I really like that idea because it's like we do we use frequency sometimes without knowing it, right? So like you're watching Wheel of Fortune and people are picking the vowels, right? Um, so anyway, that's how it applies to today. So what do you think the most common three-letter word is?
And
Or the.
It's the, yeah. So through this,
Yay. Yay. It's yay.
yay.
so through this, we can then, I had a brain fart. We can then, um, if we know the most common word is we can use the frequency of the, goodness, I'm so sorry, of the letters used to then crack the code, right? So this is an example. And if you guys want to take a swing at it, go right ahead. So in this little code, can you guys see that? Okay. Is that okay? On the left-hand side of the screen. So this code, what letter is most frequent?
H. Am I right?
Yes. Um, so what do you think this letter represents?
H is E.
It
Oh, I'm
is
doing it.
E.
I'm doing it.
You're doing
Okay,
so
it
good.
sounded really complicated, but once you realize what you're doing, it gets easier. Okay.
Right. Yes. Um, so okay, so now we know what H stands for. What can we gather about the word PRH then, if we know that H is E?
It's likely to be the word the.
What? Whoa. Yeah, that's right. It's the. Okay, so now we know that PRH is the, so we know what that the P is T, that the R is H, and that the H is E. So what do we think that the second word means in that sentence?
T blank E E, where the blank is not an H. I think it's a tree. I'm really trying hard not to look at your right-hand
I
column.
know. I meant to crop it. I forgot. I'm so sorry.
See how you
Fancy.
arrive at that. It's helpful for seeing the steps of the metacognition here.
I'm
It
having
is also
flashbacks to
helpful.
watching Wheel of Fortune as a child a lot right now.
You're welcome. So if we continue that pattern, we find out more and more. Now we know that the W stands for R. So now we have tree. And if you guys, I'm gonna speed this up just a little bit, but now we know, so we can decipher that the whole sentence that's totally not on the same page is the tree is green. Um, but I think this is a really creative way to show frequencies to kids. It's also from Arlington National Cemetery, and I forgot to mention there is a typo. It says that R is H, which I'm sorry. That P is E and P is clearly T. So there is that, but overall this is a great source to use. I've linked all this stuff into the PowerPoint so you guys can access it. So Thomas Jefferson, getting back into early American history, was really, really fascinated with ciphers throughout his life. He actually created a cipher wheel, which is the picture I have, um, during the American Revolutionary War, but it wasn't used. It was like reinvented by somebody else and wasn't used until the 1920s for government messages, which is crazy. And then he also started using ciphers whenever he was a minister to France, because they were looking through the French were looking through mail, and he used coded messages so that he could communicate with the United States government secretly. And then the one that we're gonna look at soon is he gave M Meriwether Lewis a cipher during the Louisiana Purchase for their exploration. So, something that we can think about with this cipher incorporating math is that each you have a key and each in the key, each letter on the outside of the rim corresponds with a number. So we can start with this idea that A equals 0, B equals 1, and Z equals 25. Um, and then you can emphasize that a key tells the user how to shift many spaces across the alphabet. So you would start here at 0, and then B would be 1. So it's like wherever they meet in the middle is the answer, if that makes sense, on the Jefferson cipher. That's how it functions. Okay. So the second part of my lesson idea, incorporating math with the history. So the history of this document, we can ask why do you let me back up for a minute. So we can always ask, what type of document is this? Is it handwritten or is it typed? Are there stamps and other marks? Because this is not something you usually see. Like, it's very artistically drawn, it's very eye-catching, very engaging to the students. So asking these questions is even more engaging. Like, okay, this is a primary source document, but what is it? You know? Because this is very unusual. Um, we can also ask who wrote it, who received it, when is it from? We can also ask, um, why is Jefferson sending, like, why did he need to send a code to explorers? What's happening during this time period where he would need to do that, right? No, we're short on time. So, um, this is a lesson extension. I'm not going to go into super great detail. It is in the newsletter, but I really, really like these sources. So this is the Jefferson cipher. I also have a transcription in the newsletter, so if kids need that, they'll be able to read it easier. So with your class, this disclaimer, this is from the National Park Service. It's great. They give you all of the instructions. So there's three steps, I believe, but the first is coding a message. So they give you the algorithm, they give you the message that Jefferson wrote, and they go into a little more detail about how the code works as far as the shift, I believe. So you get to code a message using the Jefferson code, and then you get to decode a message using the same knowledge that you already learned from the previous sheet. So it's just applying the same thing but flopped. Um, and then you get to, once you've done those two steps and your class has like got it down, they're good, they're rocking it, you can do a send a coded message. So they get to create their own code using um, the frequency that we've just discussed, and then they can send messages to each other using this code. So, yeah.
That is awesome. Thank you so much. And all this stuff is linked both from the Padlet and as well as from our newsletter issue. Kira, did you have a last couple things that you wanted to show? Or are we
Yeah, I
good?
have just a couple things to close us out with. So
Could you
just
close?
a
There we go.
quick reminder. Again, we'll be posting, Ashley's slides, the resources, those kind of things, to the album on the TPS Teachers Network. So please be sure to check that out. And then we encourage you, if you're looking to get PD credit for participation in today's session or for viewing this recording after the fact, please be sure to complete the Google survey. We are checking those. We try to get those out about once a week. Those emails will typically come from either myself or from our other graduate assistant, Elizabeth Webb, so be on the lookout for those. Again, we usually try to get those out once a week, so fill that out. And then if you haven't heard from us within a week, give me a shout and we will make sure that you get your certificate.
And I just
And
popped
then,
that link. I'm sorry, I just popped
okay.
that link into the chat, and I'm going to pop this link into the chat too.
Yes. And then finally, we will be back, sans graduate students, unfortunately, because they will still be enjoying winter break. But we, Stacy, Layla, and I will be back on January the 8th for our next webinar. So if you are interested in joining for that, we encourage you to register. And Stacy, can you remind me what our theme is for next month?
It's human geography.
Oh, that's right. So, maps and how maps can help to tell stories. So,
Or
we talked about
maps.
how math can tell stories. Next month, we're going to explore how mapping. It's a nice kind of segue, I think, from what we talked about today. So, again, thank you everyone so much for joining us, and we hope to see you in 2026.